Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Hi there, I'm Chris Stashew.
I'm Jess Byard.
And we're the hosts of the One Season Show, a podcast where we take a look at a TV show that only lasted one season.
Each month we tackle several episodes of the show, and on this episode we're going to be talking about episodes 8 and 9, Schizoid Man, and Many Happy Returns.
Patrick McGoohan is the prisoner, trapped in a strange, terrifying prison.
A lot of people are curious about what lies behind your resignation. They want to know why you suddenly left. A man like you is worth a great deal on the open market. The information in your head is priceless. I don't think you realize what a valuable property you've become. What a valuable property you've become.
Patrick McGoohan is the prisoner.
And what show are we talking about?
Oh, The Prisoner.
Boy, the excitement.
You know what? If you're listening to this episode, you should know what show we're watching.
That's true, but if you're just coming at this new because it's on your RSS feed for some reason.
Honestly, you could start listening to this at this point. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, Jess is completely right, because this show, like we've mentioned countless times before now, and we'll mention it once again, if you're watching this show along with us, this is not the order that they were filmed in, this is not the order that they were produced in, and this is not the order that they were released in. This is a fan order, the 6 of 1 order on Wikipedia, and on their website you can check that out, but this is the order that we're watching it in because I think we'd both agree, Jess, that if a fan community has come to a consensus, it's probably the best direction to watch it in.
Probably, yeah. And I mean, sometimes I have my reservations on thinking like that, as far as like, when it comes down to like things like director's cuts and versus fan edits. And fan edits in general are sort of an interesting topic for me my career trajectory kind of puts me in the middle of both the criticism side of things and the actual filmmaking side of things. So sometimes the fan, edits and fan wants kind of, I guess, rub me the wrong way, because it's kind of like, well, it's not your artistic vision. Why do you think you should have it? But, in cases like this, where it's somebody's just kind of love for the fan, the episodes, I think. And honestly, I don't know why they put them in these specific orders. We didn't do a whole lot of research as to why it's this way.
I mean, I'm not going to say I know exactly why, but I will say that sitting and watching the show for as long as we've been watching it now, I'm getting a better sense as to why they put it in the order that they did.
Yeah. I do appreciate that that's coming kind of out in these episodes. Like when we had first started this show, and there were a few things where it didn't really understand why certain episodes were arranged the way they were. But now, yeah, I do at least like to see that we're seeing some kind of progression, even if the story is pretty much just spinning its wheels and doing the same thing over and over, which
very much
I guess,
so, unfortunately.
That unfortunately is not different for these next two episodes, Schizoid Man and Many Happy Returns. But I did enjoy these episodes a bit more than others in the past, and kind of the reason that I enjoyed the dream manipulation episode, I enjoyed Schizoid Man because it kind of happens within, it's a story that is happening within the world and not bent solely on number 6's escape.
Sure.
Plus, we get to see some awesome 1960s attempts at shooting one actor playing the same role. Because in this episode, number 2 is up to their old tricks again and trying to manipulate and confuse number 6 into giving him information.
Oh, hold on. You're giving the episode way too much of a benefit of the doubt. It is much more complicated than even that. They convince number 6 that he's someone else and bring someone else in who looks like him to be number 6, which is, it's a double bluff.
Yeah, the only way they differentiate is a mustache, obviously, because that's how...
Maybe. Sometimes.
Well, I mean, at the very beginning, when... Sure. So is that it? Did they... I thought that maybe they cloned number 6?
No, it's a double bluff. So instead of having number 6 and another person come in pretend to be number 6, they convince number 6 that he's someone else. They try to.
Gaslighting.
Yeah, and then they bring in... someone else who looks just like him to pretend to be number 6. So it's like that. It's like the idea of, like a placebo, right? So when you go and do like a clinical trial, some people get the actual drug, some people get the placebo. In this scenario, nobody is getting the actual drug, everybody's getting a placebo.
Right.
And so no one knows anything at all. And that's the whole point here is number 6 is not only trying to be convinced he's someone else, but they're also trying to convince him that he is someone else and someone else is who he originally was. It's unnecessarily convoluted. It's frustratingly convoluted.
It is, but it's very convoluted. But I don't know. I like the idea of that kind of gaslighting because it is, if this show were a bit more connected in its story and progression of character, and sort of, dismantling of a character, which is what should be happening to number 6 by this point in this show. He should be cracking. He should be having sort of these other crises of character and identity while he's, trapped in this village. And this episode's going for that. And this episode, the idea of people being having so much control over you and having broken you down so much to make you believe that you are a different person is pretty, it's pretty unnerving and unsettling and disturbing. It's just, unfortunately, that psychological aspect of that idea isn't explored at all, because it's pretty much this is an effect episode. This is their episode where they were, okay, we're going to get Patrick McGoohan to play 2 different characters who look the same person basically, and it's going to look really cool, and we're going to do all these, we're going to set up the camera with forced perspective and all this stuff, and that's basically where we end up focusing, is them just accomplishing this effect, which they do, I think, pretty well for 1968.
Well, and that's the other thing that is a problem with this is, this episode is the 8th episode of the show. It is, again, we're at this point in the show where we are about to hit the halfway point. And this is ostensibly the second episode that has any sort of harder sci-fi. Mm-hmm. Because, but even then it's they're doing some sort of manipulation to his psyche. But at the same time, that's not really sci-fi.
No, I mean, honestly, there were a couple sequences where I was even confused as to who was actually number 6, and that's not a tell for a good they got me plot. That's just that it was unnecessarily convoluted, like you said.
Well, that's the problem I think with this episode. That is the bigger issue, is that the way that this episode is shot. It's very they're really trying to push the envelope of what they could do in 67. This episode aired in the end of, October of 67. So they're pushing the envelope. They're really trying to push it and really go for it when it comes to doing these effects. And while I have to give them credit for pushing the envelope and really trying to do something interesting, it doesn't work because it's ultimately way too confusing. And it's so convoluted and poorly handled when they're both on screen together that in my mind, all it ends up doing is making the audience wonder what is even going on, because similarly with a lot of the stuff that's happened in this show, they don't even really explain what's happening. And
no, they don't. They don't explain who this other number 6 is. They don't understand. They don't explain why he looks like him. Like, I was just kind of thinking that maybe it's a clone or a robot or some kind of, I'm putting.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Sci-fi elements that aren't necessarily overtly there.
Yeah,
but
no,
there's no explanation at all.
I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, they don't even say that this is a person who looks just like him. They don't say that, which is what this is, but you could, like you said, interpret it as he's a clone, or it's like a face-off situation where they put his face on someone else's face, or they did plastic surgery to make him look like it.
Like, they could have done a cool, and this would have been predictable as well, but just to kind of make it, and I guess they kind of do this in the next one, but reveal that person who is, the fake number 6 is actually number 2. I think they could have, that could have worked in some capacity. I do think that there is an interesting aspect to this episode, though, and it's the insistence upon by the actual number 6, Patrick McGoohan, the actual number 6, when he is insisting that he's number 6. He's not insisting he's a name. He's insisting he's the number, which I did think was interesting, because this entire time we've been going up, every intro to the show is him insisting that he is not a number, that he is, a person. And in this episode, where he's faced with this kind of, psychological, switch, that when it comes down to him actually exclaiming and trying to plead, he's insisting he's a number. And I don't know if
they have broken him.
Yeah. In this episode, for all intents and purposes, they come pretty close to really breaking him. And I do think that is an interesting nugget inside of this episode. And given the next episode, I don't know necessarily that kind of brokenness is going to stick with his character.
Well, it's not.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
let's not kid ourselves. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of carryover. I think for me, what I walk away from this episode with is, this is an interesting idea, but I know because it came through on screen. Terrence Feely wanted to give the audience this idea that he could possibly get away, and he could possibly, because ultimately number 6 is trying to put one over on them by saying, okay, I'm not number 6. You're right.
Right.
I can go back to the mainland. Send me home. And that's what he's trying to do. And at the end, they pull another hot gotcha moment on him. But you have to explain more. Even if it's minor amounts of things, you need to give the audience a better idea of what the villains are trying to accomplish, as opposed to just having
information.
Yeah, information. But the problem is they don't even tell you what they're doing this episode. All of a sudden, another version of him shows up, and you're just like, wait, huh? What?
You have this checked out, like, what is this? Yeah. Well, and so, yeah, he's trying to convince them and reverse psychology. Yes, okay, fine. I'm not number 6. I'm this person. So send me back to the mainland. And the reason he gets found out is because he asks about a woman named Susan, who they reveal evidently died like a year before then. So it couldn't have been this, person that would have known that. Who the fuck is Susan?
It's the person that they use to catch him in the lie at the end. That's all I know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we don't know
because Allison is the character that he's like doing the gag from Ghostbusters with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This episode does open with that, where they're playing those psychic cards. Yeah, where it's like, is it wavy lines or a triangle or whatever? And she's actually getting them right?
She is, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe there's some psychic abilities, I guess, in this. Again, every episode we get is more questions and fewer answers, which I don't always hate, but, and you know what, like I said, I did actually enjoy this episode, and for the most part, I enjoyed the next ones too, because it's at least something a little different. It's not just Patrick McGoohan trying to escape bit. There's some, interesting qualities in it, but yeah, unfortunately none of it really matters because none of it's going to retain to the next episode, which is many happy returns.
Yeah, and look, let's not kid ourselves again. We talked about this on the last episode. We're going to talk about it now. Just touch on it again briefly. They're not going to have any carryover, clearly.
No.
And look, the unfortunate thing is, if this show were made now, they would have to have carryover because the audience would be like, this happened last episode.
They wouldn't stand for it.
Yeah, exactly. But in 1967, again, that wasn't the norm when it came to storytelling on a show of a narrative quality of this show. So,
it also wasn't the norm to have everybody be able to put their opinion out on full blast for everyone to see.
Well, yeah, that too. That too, which, depending on where you come down on it, could be a positive or a negative, but whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so Many Happy Returns is the 9th episode. It aired November 12th, 1967. It is directed by Patrick McGoohan, written by Anthony Skeen, and it stars Georgina Cookson as number 2. Now, one other thing we need to mention about this episode. This is the final episode that George Markstein and Patrick McGoohan worked on together, because this is the point when the two of them diverged as to where they thought they wanted the show to go towards the end. So this was the 13th episode that was produced. There's 17 episodes of the show, which means this episode was produced towards the end of the show's run. So they had apparently gotten into a disagreement about where they wanted the show to go and how they wanted the show to end. And this is the final episode that the two of them would work on together because of that disagreement and
creative differences.
And boy, it shows with this episode, because this episode could have ostensibly been the end of the show.
It could have been, and I would have been okay with it. And I like this episode, and I think part of it is because so essentially the setup for this one is number 6 wakes up in the village, but the village is deserted. Nobody's there anywhere. Not a single living soul is there. So he decides to build a boat and set sail to find the mainland. And that's what he does for the good majority of the episode. And in the good majority of the episode, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, there's almost no dialogue for about half of this episode, which I didn't hate.
No, I mean, look, one of my favorite movies of all time is There Will Be Blood, and that movie doesn't have dialogue for the first hour of the movie.
I mean, there really shouldn't be.
No, if done right, it can be very, very, very good.
Yeah, and this, I think, worked. I mean, he does go out. We see him. He's kind of like he's at sea for a while. He starts to grow a beard. It's a little bit of a castaway situation, and then he's found by a ship and
gun runners.
Yeah, so gun runners, and taken back to the mainland, supposedly, and we go on from there. So is he or is he not?
No. So I the way I interpreted this episode is he got to London.
Right. I did too.
Because, like, it's pretty overt. I mean, again, if you read some
There's
backstory...
a whole city.
Yeah, if you read some backstory on this episode, I mean, this episode, clearly, Mark Stein and McGoohan are at this point in their creative writing relationship where they aren't sure... neither one of them are sure where they want the show to go, but they both know that they don't have the same idea for where they want it to go. They just don't know where it's going to go, but neither one of them can agree on the same thing. So you have this split here where there's a point in the episode where the episode could have essentially been the end of the show. He gets back to London. He goes and reports to his former superiors. He tells them all about the island. They go back to find the island, and he finds the island. But then, of course, they're in a jet fighter, and the pilot of the jet fighter, because McGoohan is in the back seat, goes, "Be seeing you," and ejects him out of the plane. And he goes back to the island, and it turns out that the woman who was living in his apartment in London, Mrs. Butterworth, is actually number 2, and she says many happy returns, and that's the end of the episode. And it really feels like an episode that doesn't know what it's trying to do, because we've already seen this episode. We've seen an episode just like this one, where he gets back to the mainland in the chimes of Big Ben.
Well, I don't know if he did get back to the mainland in that one. That one's a little less because he only gets to a room. We don't see...
Sure,
we
but
don't
they're trying
see
to convince you he's in London.
Yes.
They're trying to do the same thing, right?
Right,
Ostensibly, they're trying to do the same thing.
Got it.
Right.
And so that's where
this is more overt.
Yeah, this episode is, and again, I liked these 2 episodes. Obviously we saw the twist coming because it's always going to be the same twist at the end of every episode. But I enjoyed the fact that, of course, he's back at the island because he could have been fine if he would have just left well enough alone, got back to the city, and then went on living his life in secret and kept on going. He could have stayed potentially in London, but because he has
I don't know if I believe that, though.
Well, maybe, but now he, at this point, like, he explicitly is like, I'm going back. I'm going to go back and prove all of this. And it's like, yeah, of course you're going to get stuck there again. We've already been aware that your government, at least part of it, some people within your government are on the side of the village. And I think that the biggest issue with this episode is that I mean, I guess you can reason this for every episode, or you can ask this for every episode, but I don't entirely understand why or how the whole village was deserted.
I think everybody was just hiding.
Like, they just go underground? And
I don't understand.
But why? So he could escape and go to London and then get sent back?
Yeah, I think what this whole show is about, and I would say that that's pretty much the case because reading interviews with Mark Stein and McGoohan, this show is about, one of the things this show is about is trying to break someone mentally. And how are they going to break him mentally other than having him go all the way, get right to the finish line, and then grasp it away from him? Yeah. Move the goalpost right at the end. And that's what they do. I mean, he's in London, and like you said, it is his choice to go back to the island. It's his choice, yeah. But, they knew that he was going to do it.
Well.
Right? I mean, they knew the kind of person he is. They know he can't leave well enough alone because that's who he is as a character. And they assume, they anticipate that that's what's going to happen. They have Mrs. Butterworth there. They have her there at the apartment, his apartment. So they know he's going to come back there. And then they put her there, and look what happens. She's number 2. So I don't think there's any scenario where he gets back to London and didn't do what he did.
Yeah, and I think, that's just, like you said, and we've touched on this before, that another part of what the show's about is kind of like, even if you're, people can change. That is an absolute fact, and you can change bad behaviors, and you can change your life for the better. But there are some things that are inherently in your personality that you can't break, and Patrick McGoohan's character, like we touched on before, he's supposed to be some kind of James Bond awesome spy, and everyone's upset that he resigned because he's so good at his job and he just can't get over himself, which is a large part of why he ends up getting stuck back in this village all the time.
Well, and also because they're convinced he's going to spill the beans to the highest bidder, which, again,
we don't know what information they want either.
Well, they don't know what he has either.
Exactly. Nobody's asking any specific questions other than he's asking who's number one.
Just think about James Bond, right? I mean, the character of James Bond, the amount of things, if you prescribe to the idea that James Bond has been one character the entire time, not the James Bond is a handle, like 007 is a handle for the person. Think of all the information that he knows about the amounts of times that the world has almost ended that normal society doesn't know about. That is the assumption I make with this character, with the character of number 6. It's just think of, it's like that quote from Men in Black where it's like, there's always a Carillion death cruiser coming, or there's always some intergalactic plague right on the horizon, but we're the ones who stop it. If humans knew about, or if society knew about these things, it would be a mass meltdown.
Right.
And that's like, I assume with his character, they're worried that he'll talk to someone and spill the beans and society will start to come unglued because of the amount of times he's saved the world from God knows what threat.
Right. Yeah. And I mean,
but that's headcanon. It's the only thing that kind of makes sense, because I guarantee you we're never going to figure out what that information is. Judging by the way the show has been going, they're not going to offer that information.
Well, and you know what? Maybe they don't even want any information from him, and it's all just this could be just a giant Twilight Zone episode of it was all a military training, thing. That you were in a simulation this whole time.
I think, and judging from what we've seen so far, the show is showing us the village as a place where people like number 6 go, where they can be monitored and kept away from the greater public, because if something that they knew ever did come out, it would create mass panic. And so they're just trying to figure out what he knows, but I'm not sure what they do with that information. I don't know if they're like some sort of there's some sort of rogue nation, like some rogue state that's trying to figure it out to then do something with it, or just figure it out just to figure it out so that they know what he knows.
Well, right, because like in the intros, he always asks like, "Who are you?" and they say, or "Who do you work for?" and they say that would be telling. So there's somebody. This village is constructed by somebody that would be a known entity, or an organization that is a known entity. But I also don't know. Like I kind of talked about at the beginning of this series, that when we started, that there's a very Stepfordy quality to the people who have, I guess, acclimated or joined or
we
whatever.
See children at some point, so these people must have at some point just given up and given in.
Right, they just give the information out and then they just live their lives in this sort of fake Stepfordy world, that as long as they keep, they don't ask too many questions, everything will be fine.
Yeah, everything's provided for you. I mean, another show that has some of these similar themes is the current, it's still on, Westworld, and there's a question that they pose where it's, if you can't tell if it's real, does it matter? And if these people don't care that this is where they are and they're able to just enjoy this village for what it is, does it matter that they're there?
Right. Well, and see, what I'm wondering more so is like, is it more of a Stepford quality where they've been replaced?
No, I think they've just been broken.
Okay.
Because I mean, that's what they're trying to do to number 6. So I just assume.
Yeah, they could
assume that they've been doing this to everyone.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess they could just sit him down and torture him for 12 straight hours, but then there would be no show.
I also don't think torturing someone is as exciting as mentally breaking them through all sorts of,
schemes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's trying to escape, schemes. Or there's like a version of him that's not him, and they're trying to convince him he's someone else. Or, I mean, any number of things. I mean, we've seen like different variations on these ways to mentally break his character, and it hasn't worked yet. Because he's, the rugged individualism of number 6 is that he's not going to give up until he's free. Do you want to become part of the greater population, or do you want to be an individual? I mean, that's what this show. I mean, we've talked about that. It's
right, and that's obviously it's very heavy-handed, and that
the populism versus individualism is pretty overt.
Right. Yeah.
But that's why I like this show. Like that's why I've been enjoying the show. But it's the thing I will say about this episode specifically is I liked the episode to a point, but when it was clear that he was going back to the village, I was like, man, I thought we were going to maybe see something different for a couple episodes.
Yeah, and that is just a restart every time.
You could do something in London where the village and pieces of the people of the village are in London, still trying to manipulate him there. You could.
I mean, obviously this is a government thing, so it's like you could manipulate the police and everybody into working on your side.
I mean, yeah, clearly his own government is in on it. Maybe not everyone. Maybe it's compartmentalized, which is the easiest way to hide things within your own government, is to compartmentalize information. But I think that's what is going on here, is his own government is doing this to him because, again, they're worried what him revealing secrets could mean for them.
As we get towards the end, there we go. As we get towards the end, we at least... And I know that we're not, it's not going to be a satisfying ending, obviously.
Here's the thing. I don't know, though, right? Like,
yeah, I'm just glad
fans of the show didn't like it, but, like, that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to like it.
Exactly, and I'm just happy that there is one. I am happy, that even if he was only given, like a week and a half to write it or some shit, like some ridiculous shit like that, at least we are going to get some sort of finality and closure, and it's not just going to be...
I don't go that far.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's probably just going to still be stuck in the village. Like, but at least there is an ending to this.
Again, I don't know, right? That's an assumption. I mean, look, it's like anything else with fan communities, right? I mean... fan communities are the most opinionated people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I hope that there's an ending. I hope that there's some sort of conclusion. I don't know how satisfying it's going to be. I have my druthers as to what I think it's going to be. If they knew that they weren't going to get to make more of the show, like you said, that means that they have to write an ending.
Right.
It's not like Kitchen Confidential or Werewolf, where you literally have and next time on, and it's like, yo, there is not a next time.
No,
there's nothing else. Time. Like, the next time, the next time never came.
Yeah, and that'll be a first for our show. 4 shows that have been canceled, we actually get one that at least was given some kind of warning. Not great warning, but warning nonetheless. So this will be an interesting kind of first. We actually get a wrap up on a story of some kind.
And whether or not it's an ending that either one of us, that resonates with us, or is a conclusion that is, good in quotations, or a quality conclusion. Because look, I'm not gonna lie. If you and I were writing a show, what's the hardest episodes of the show to write? The first episode,
right, and the last episode,
and the last episode. Because look at something like Sopranos. Look at something like Star Trek. Star Trek to some extent, but X-Files. I mean, a lot of these shows, like, the conclusions of the show are wildly divisive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, most shows don't have, it's fair to say that when shows are on and they're beloved. But when they end, it's usually overwhelmingly people were disappointed in the ending, whether it was a good ending or not, whether it was a planned ending or not, or whether it was a forced ending or not. Endings to things usually are met with more adversary than they are with feelings of completion. And I think that that's probably a psychological thing where it's just you're pissed off because the thing you like is over and there's no more, and you can't, daydream with these characters anymore because you've been told this is what happened to them or not, and that's it. It's a finality that I think that we don't like as people. It's not as obviously, distressing or as serious as death, but it is a finality. There's something there that you're not going to get back again. You're not going to get back that joy of watching that show for the first time. And especially the more dedicated and more into the show you are, the more likely you're going to be burned by the ending, because it's not going to be what you want it to be. The characters, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be what you want it to be because it's not your thing. But I totally understand that just general, prickliness towards endings. I like ambiguous endings too. So that's like
Me too.
But we're not quite there with this show. We're almost to the end.
talking about show endings, because like you said, we haven't gotten a chance to really talk about it. I understand, like you said, I understand people being upset that a show ends, but like, just be thankful your show didn't end like Game of Thrones or like Dexter, because those are going down as like the worst series finales of all time.
For shows that are otherwise that were before those seasons aired were beloved.
Yeah.
And like hugely critically acclaimed. Dexter started going down.
Season 6.
The last season, I was going to say the last season was the worst season, sure, but it wasn't the start of the downfall.
Season 6, with the fallout of one of the main characters' deaths.
Mm-hmm.
After that season that handled the fallout of the character's death was where I kind of stopped really being a fan of the show. And Game of Thrones, I think Game of Thrones, it's less obvious where the decline is. You could ask any number of fans of the show what season you kind of stopped thinking the show was quality.
Plus, for a show like that, there's a lot of hindsight that people now are like, well, now, I don't know. I think that people are willing to jump on it, and I didn't like it more overall now that the ending is what it is, rather than I liked the show up until this last season.
Well,
I think that the end it really ruined it for a lot of, like, the whole series for a lot of people.
Well, and when you have a show that's based off of a previous property that people can still read and are still waiting for it to be finished, a lot of the folks that I know that have a problem with the show go, well, here's where it stopped being good because it ran out of source material. And if you don't have that frame of reference for kind of saying why the show's quality dipped, you're going to come to a different conclusion. It's going to be a different season.
Right.
So, I mean, look, Dexter's based off of another property, but Dexter strayed away very far from the books pretty quickly. But Game of Thrones, like, kept it, sort of.
Well, and that's telling of that, like, these creators were more interested in the source material than expanding on the source material themselves, and that's apparent when the source material runs out, because then it's no longer their show. They don't know what to do anymore because they don't have any direction for events. They're just like, well, this wasn't our initial, like, baby anyway, and we adapted it, and now we don't know what to do.
Which is a super dick move, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But at the same time, I mean, again, like, that fuels the flame of the backlash for the fans of the show. And with this show, like you said, I mean, there is backlash in the community for the show of people who don't like the way the show ends. And I'm still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt until I see it.
I am too.
Right? I know, yeah, obviously you are as well. It's just, I find it funny that this show, people get worked up about the ending of this show when I personally only imagine this show ending one of two ways. Either he stays on the island, which I think is the less likely ending, or I think somehow the island, the village, the island, same difference, because now it's been established it's an island. I imagine that the village gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, it's only two ways that the show could go. Like, there's not a lot of wiggle room. I mean, there may be some more complexity to it, knowing this show's innate ability to be confusing for confusing's sake.
Wakes up and it's all a dream.
Yeah, well.
Because that was popular to do that.
But, like, I imagine he either stays on the island or the village, or he destroys the village.
Right.
And I'm leaning towards the village gets destroyed. And he
Which would be pretty
escapes.
awesome.
Yeah, sure. I know that the comic book from the 80s, that was it was a Marvel or DC comic, that's a direct sequel to the ending of the story. So we're going to have to address that in the finale as well, and I have it, and I haven't read it yet because I don't want to read something that gives the ending away. But Shattered Visage addresses the ending of the show as well. So, I'm excited to see the second half of the show because now we're in the second half of the show. But right now, it's, it has felt very wheel spinning.
Yeah, agreed.
What are the next episodes we're talking about, Jess?
So we're going to be talking about episodes 10 and 11, which are It's Your Funeral and Change Your Mind.
So we're, these are the last couple episodes of the one season show for The Prisoner. So hopefully you've been with us through this, and I'm excited to see where the second half of the season takes us.
And if any of you are like actual super fans of Prisoner, because there are evidently some, since we're watching their list, please like reach out to us. Let us know, if you know more about why this arrangement is the way it is. Let us know. If you just have little insights or little whatever tidbits you want to throw at us, do it. We totally love that shit. So get at us on Twitter.
I think we should still also offer up our order at the end.
Oh yes, I would agree.
Right? I mean, why not?
Oh yeah, the one season show approved Prisoner episode ordering.
Yeah, because again, we're sitting here watching the show in someone else's order, so might as well.
Agreed. So where can people find you, Chris?
They can find me over on Twitter at casualty_Chris. I talk about pretty much everything I work on there. That is the easiest spot to find me. You can find the podcast at oneseasonshow.com or at oneseasonshow on Twitter. What about you, Jess? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at writerjessbyard. That is also where I post pretty much everything I do. But if you're looking specifically for Chris and I together on podcasts, you can find me on the Culture Cast twice a month, which is a movie-themed podcast. Every month is a different theme. You can also find us on our other podcast, Scary Stories We Tell, which sort of traverses the lines of true crime, horror culture, and unexplained events. So if any of that kind of tickles your fancy and you're tired of TV or movies, hit us up over there.
Yeah, because let's not kid ourselves. We do like other things than TV or movies.
We do. We are well-rounded people.
Yeah, well.
We are well-squared people.
You, baby. Me as
I'm more of a triangle.
And yeah, big thanks as always to Mustaches and Martinis. That's the music for the One Season Show. And be seeing you.